Greetings, Dragon Ball fans, and welcome to Part 5 of Flame and Ice's suggested What If Piccolo Stayed Evil, where a badly worded ribbing from Goku turned Piccolo down a path of resentment and hate. In the last parts, we saw this iteration's version of the history of Trunks, albeit with a slightly demonic Piccolo to gum up the works. The Z-Fighters all died, and Piccolo finally reigned supreme over the Dragon World. For about an hour. The artificial humans, 17 and 18, had other ideas, and Piccolo was left wanting. Wanting to not have a hole in his chest. Wanting his loyal minion, Nokan, once Gohan, to not finish him off, as he had finished off the boy's father some 4 years prior. Nokan himself then went on to raise a small army of loyal soldiers of his own. He met up with the young orphan Videl Satan, and they fell in with each other pretty quickly. After years of scrounging and fighting and running and starving, they eventually met up with West City's resistance group, led by none other than his own heartbroken but grimly determined mother, Chi-Chi. For a moment, the woman was thrilled to find not only her baby boy alive and well, but also with a family of his own. He had somehow made it back to civilization, and some semblance of his old self. Unfortunately, the two machine people were busy getting ever more bored, and kept attacking to try and push their only plaything of any real interest as far as they could. The death of both his mother, Chi-Chi, and his lover, Videl, pushed the then name-restored Gohan over the edge into Super Saiyan. But it didn't do much good at the time. While their plaything was way more interesting, they still left him buried under a building or two. After being taken to Bulma, Gohan and this version of Pan, named Mirai here by a very optimistic Videl, both set about helping her complete her time machine, the completion of which coincided nicely with the emergence of a new threat in the future world. Cell had hatched, and without much resistance consumed both 17 and 18. Mirai then fled to the past as instructed by her father as he battled and ultimately died at Cell's hands. In the past, she proceeded to help this younger version of her father retain his sense of self, and then they kind of steamrolled first Nappa and then what was left of Vegeta after Goku had his go at it. They then all ventured into the hyperbolic time chamber after some requisite arm-twisting of the elderly guardian, Kami. When faced with the trip to Namek, Chi-Chi, who is still coming to grips with her now 7-year-old son, pleads with him not to go. When she'd learned that he'd just spent 2 years with only a handful of books, now long since memorized, she'd almost fainted. How could they possibly need him when they have Goku, this wonderful Mirai girl, and that brooding prince guy to accompany them? Yeah, she's actually right, and neither Mirai nor Gohan have any real objections to him staying behind. I'm sure she'll miss playing surrogate auntie to her own father, and those nights spent reading through his textbooks with him had been some of the most fun she'd had since ever. No cares, no immediate worries, just sitting back, talking for hours about biology or maths or sentence structure had been wonderful. Hearing this, Gohan disappears into his room for a minute, and much to Mirai's delight, to the point of tears, he returns with a bag packed solid with new books, ones she'd never read. Tien and Yamcha also have no interest in going, which is fine. It's not that they're worried about a world full of Piccolos, at least not anymore. And Kami himself seems nice enough, if not a bit aloof. If the rest of them are all somewhere in between there shouldn't be much of an issue. Mirai is happy with their decision as well, since with them around, that Piccolo guy would be a fool to try anything but hiding in whatever hole he'd found, hoping that none of them come looking for him. So the Namekian contingent is Goku, Vegeta, Krillin, and the pilot Bulma, who Mirai plans on using as a replacement study partner. It's not her, dad, but she had spent hours around future Bulma, so figured it would be good enough. Yes, Mirai does actually agree to come too, but only so long as she can hold on to the capsulized Frankenpod that Bulma had cobbled together out of the spare Saiyan attack pod parts. If anything goes sideways, somehow, Namek, as Vegeta says it's called, is not actually her main concern. She wants to be able to get back to deal with those android things, and that other thing, despite the power on display by the humans around her. They set off in the bulbous ship to make their way to Namek and Frieza, and they're not a day into their 6-day journey when a certain prince discovers what the central control column actually controls. He had mentioned the gravity to that Bulma woman, hadn't he? Well, she'd certainly remembered. Maybe he'll thank her after he tests it out. He casts an eye around to make sure said woman is not around, lest he incur the wrath of either Bulma herself or that daunting young woman, Mirai, should Bulma not survive the event. Without warning anyone else in the room, he cranks it up, past the 10 Gs and on to 50. That's interesting. Yeah, let's try 100. 150? By the time he hits 200 Gs, the complaint line starts ringing. "Come on, man, I wasn't done reading that," Krillin says, looking at the beyond flattened strips of paper on the floor. "I haven't read a good mag for 2 years, man." Gohan and Mirai are not overly upset by it, and Goku seems to be enjoying it too. It's not exactly tough once you push your ki high enough, but, well, don't those Frieza guys have power detection thingies? Ah, yeah, scouters. Well, doesn't forcing everyone on the upper deck to put out all that power just to move around seem like it might, I don't know, hang a massive sign over their heads saying, "Hey, look, Super Saiyans over here. Please shoot our relatively wimpy ship out of the sky so we can all die in the vacuum of space." Oh, well, okay then. It's not like 200 Gs was that difficult, even with a base of, what was it, Boldy? 850k? Oh, wait, no, none of them have scouters, do they? I think it's fair to say that neither the rebel ship nor fake Namek are a thing. Well, maybe fake Namek, but, well, yeah, not really a problem, The timing with the rebel ship also doesn't fit at all, much to their discomfort when they run into an asteroid field. They arrive on Namek, and no sooner has the door opened and Vegeta blasts off towards some severely meh energy levels. After a cursory glance from Goku to Krillin to Bulma, Mirai shrugs and flies off after him, with Goku following after making sure Krillin and Bulma are happy to go and make contact with the locals. Having left a few days later, but arriving weeks ahead of schedule, Frieza is only now unpacking his forces, and not a single Namekian has fallen to the tyrant's short temper, nor generally sadistic nature. Krillin and Bulma arrive in Dende's village in short order and make contact before being directed to Guru's by Mori. As Krillin flies off with Bulma after the little Dende and a warrior, who only ever scowled at them, Vegeta arrives at the Frieza Force landing site and smiles down at the disarray his arrival has caused. Dodoria comes up to demand an explanation, but barely gets a word out before finding Vegeta's hand tickling his spine directly. Frieza watches with a raised eyebrow as first the pink blob and then the suave Zarbon are cast aside by that damned monkey he'd thought to keep around, if only just for some fun. Well, this isn't going very well, is it? He taps his scouter and... 12. A power level of 12? "Get me another scouter!" he shrieks. Unfortunately, the new scouter is also broken, as it's still 12. At least it is until Vegeta notices the parade of soldiers all tapping their own and repeatedly confirming 12. With a smile, he floats down to face Frieza and proceeds to unscrew the cap on his inner wells of ki. With satisfying pops, the scouters all start shattering as Mirai arrives, followed closely by Goku. They both settle to the ground to watch as Vegeta goes about doing the thing he'd talked endlessly about on the way here. Certainly time to put his money where his mouth is. When the last scouter gives out and the number 600k is reported, the unfortunate soldier who gave that report finds himself on the wrong side of a death beam. There's no way. 600,000? That's higher than his current form. Impossible. When he finds Vegeta's hand squeezing his throat, he has to admit that perhaps that was accurate. Having a tail that's as strong and as dexterous as your hand certainly comes in handy here, as he manages to pry himself free, just long enough to start transforming into his larger second form. Of course, Vegeta just floats there, letting him. It would be rude to interrupt a transformation, wouldn't it? When he then finds himself pinned to the ground, Frieza actually asks Vegeta if he would mind letting him go all the way. For a fair fight. Vegeta is, of course, happy to oblige. He releases the tyrant and walks off towards those other two before throwing something to the ground that pops and turns into a small refreshment container. A couple of heat-taps later, Frieza is done and is basking in the awe-struck look from his men. But at only 1% power, Vegeta doesn't even need to draw on his rather basic grasp of Kaioken. He proceeds to deck Frieza right in the schnoz, and the Emperor goes flying, back into and through his precious ship. Oh, damn it, Vegeta, that ship could have been useful. When Frieza finally reaches up to about 17% power, Vegeta starts to level out against him. As Frieza then pushes even further, heading towards 20% of his max power, Vegeta finally starts losing a bit of ground, and Frieza has to admit that he is rather impressed. Vegeta has somehow come up with some incredible power in, it's been only a week since he landed on that backwater mudball of a planet? What was it called again? Yarth? Yes, they even named their world after the mud, or dirt, or whatever it translates into. At 30% power, Frieza quite firmly puts Vegeta in the ground, via a not-so-small crater. He is about to turn to the other two, but his attention is drawn back by a bright red flash that clears away the rubble. Vegeta is standing there, bathed in red, his muscles bulking up as he stretches a bit, then launches back up. If only Ginyu were here right now with those really advanced scouters, he'd have some idea of how strong the prince had actually gotten. This red thing is worrying, though. He'd been briefed by his father on such things. The Saiyans have legends, don't they? Wasn't it something about the hair, though? Unfortunately for Frieza, his contemplative paralysis only wears off after he's eaten some more dirt. That really hurt. These damn Saiyans and their nigh unlimited power growth were a problem before, and now? Well, how much more proof does he need? At 50% power, Frieza again starts hitting back. Well, briefly, before Vegeta calls out something odd. Kaioken? The Kais? Hadn't Beerus mentioned the Kais? He always paid attention to what that destroyer god said, no matter how small in detail. But that can't be right. Wait, was that a number? Times 5? Is that some sort of multiplier? Did a god teach him this? Why? Why would they do that? Beerus had always just let him do his thing. Why would the gods be involved in this little spat? Well, this is no time to play around. Frieza can, however, see that Vegeta is visibly struggling with this times 5 god thing, and now, at a bulked up 100%, he is again on top. And just as he starts to worry that Vegeta would call out times 6, the prince promptly collapses to the ground, and the red aura vanishes. Ah, Vegeta, I see you've reached your limit, Frieza says, cackling with laughter. Tell me, what else did those Kais teach you? As Frieza waits patiently for his answer, Vegeta turns to the other man, who is now walking towards them. Stay back, Kakarot, he shouts. Then, after panting a bit, he says quietly, almost to himself, This is my fight. Your fight? Oh, Vegeta, this was never your fight to win, Frieza says, putting his foot on the prince's head and pushing it down into the dirt. Tell me, though, that Kakarot guy, I recognize him. Who is he? Kakarot, Vegeta says, straining against the foot, is the son of Bardock. He is nothing. Then, after a pause, he was nothing. Bardock? Oh, he's that guy. Frieza laughs. Oh, Vegeta, you should have seen the look on his face when I threw that death ball down at them. It was wonderful. The look of futility on their faces was absolutely delicious. Death ball? Them? Vegeta almost whispers. Bardock was on planet Vegeta. On your orders. Oh dear. Frieza laughs, and Kakarot stops walking towards them and looks down a bit towards the prince. And is he smiling? They were on planet Vegeta, Vegeta says, balling his fists. My planet Vegeta, he shouts, suddenly pushing back way harder against Frieza's foot than he has any right to. So hard, in fact, that Frieza is thrown up and back, but Vegeta doesn't care. He can feel it. He glances over at that Mirai woman and Kakarot, and they're both smiling back at him, Kakarot's eyes wide with anticipation. They can feel it too. When the Super Saiyan transformation eventually comes over him, at long last, he almost can't believe it. After 2 years of chasing his proverbial tail, his actual one now long gone, chasing dreams and legends, it was right here. It had been here the whole time. He looks over at Frieza, and an ever so slightly sadistic smile spreads across his face. Frieza starts to ask what all this is, but doesn't get the words out before Vegeta's fist is firmly embedded in his chest. And this isn't the usual, oh look, a really strong punch making fist extrusions from their back. No, Vegeta's fist is fully inside Frieza's chest. Mine to win, Vegeta says, gazing down at Frieza's wide, slightly terrified eyes, savoring the moment. The ball of energy released inside his chest leaves little to chance. There is no repentance, no hint of mercy. Frieza is fully and totally vaporized. He looks over at Kakarot and the woman, and she nods at him in acknowledgement, but Kakarot looks a bit concerned. He doesn't have the stomach for killing, does he? He'd spared Vegeta when he'd have blown the man away without a second thought. Though, if he'd done that, well, Vegeta would never have achieved the legend. He would never have obtained his vengeance. Not for him, and not for his people. But here and now, thanks to them, he had, he says, turning away from them, toward a group of approaching powers. The locals are all very thankful for the help, of course. While that Frieza guy hadn't actually killed any of them, they had felt some of the depths of his power, and the sheer malevolence of it. This man, this Vegeta, was not exactly a pure soul, but his motives were not important to them. They are thankful to have been saved whatever tortures that other guy had in mind. The Namekians then gather and wish the Z-Fighters well as they depart, with the promise to return that ancient ship Bulma had mentioned offhand. To be able to return to their prime of technology would be quite nice. And as they blast off into the depths of space, we will bring Part 5 to a close. Frieza is finally and utterly dead at the hands of the Saiyan Prince. He has accomplished all he really wanted to in life and slain the tyrant, even though it won't actually bring his people back. What do you think awaits them back on Earth? I mean, it's only been a couple of days, so hopefully not too much. Well, find out next time on Dragon Ball. What if Piccolo stayed evil?